This show is sponsored by Sevi, answering all your commercial real estate needs. Sevi is the first commercial real estate company committed to the 4 C's: commercial real estate, community, content, and culture. Go visit Sevi at Sevi, SEVI, properties.com. Again, SeviProperties.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today I have a very special guest for you. I have Dr. Anita Kulkarni. Dr. Kulkarni is an award-winning, board-certified female plastic surgeon in Washington, D.C., and she's also the owner of DC Plastic Surgery Boutique. She's also known as the Queen of the Mommy Makeover. Welcome to the show, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, the pleasure is all mine. Before we go into your personal and business journey, if you could just give the audience, what do you folks do there at DC Plastic Surgery Boutique, please?
Oh, sure. Okay. So DC Plastic Surgery Boutique is my solo private practice that I started in 2018. I have been a plastic surgeon in the DMV for about 12 years. I started in practice here in 2013. I was in a group in Bethesda for about 5 years, and then I broke off to start this practice, DC Plastic Surgery Boutique. This is a virtual background, but this is our lobby. This is our waiting room behind me. And the mission of the practice is to be for women by women. And the idea behind the mission of the practice was that I really wanted to create a safe space for women. You know, plastic surgery is one of those things that's so intimate, and it can be really scary, and it can be confusing and overwhelming, and sometimes people don't know what they need or what they want. And I think that a lot of times in our industry, unfortunately, there are some pushy sales tactics and there are some unscrupulous characters. And so I was trying to create an environment that would be really comfortable and safe for women. And that was the original mission of the practice, and it is the mission of our practice to this day. So all of our staff are women, all of our patients are women. The space is really designed for women to feel really comfortable. You know, my waiting room was designed to look like your living room, like your best friend's living room, instead of like a doctor's waiting room. So we've been at 2440M in downtown DC for 6 years now. And the thing that's been the most rewarding is just how much that mission has resonated with our community here in DC. The practice is super busy, and we've taken care of thousands of women in the last 6 years, and hopefully for many years to come.
I love it. And I love that your background, it's your office. You know what's the funny thing? I didn't know until today that actually the build-out was Arminco.
Yes.
Yes, and I had the owner on the show earlier.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. Oh, they did such a good job. They also built my surgery center, which is attached. It's on the other side of that white brick wall. We have a fully accredited quad ASF operating room on that side, and they built that for me as well.
Oh, it's lovely. So, Doctor, are you originally from the DMV area here?
I'm not. I'm originally from New Jersey. My dad is in international business. So when I was growing up, I went to elementary school in Seoul in Korea. And then I went to middle school and high school in New Jersey. And then I went to Chicago. We lived there for about 8 years. I went to Northwestern and then the University of Chicago for medical school. Then we were in Michigan for 6 years, training in plastic surgery. And then we were in New York for a while and finally landed here in the DMV. But I have been in DC for longer than I've lived anywhere else. So it really does feel home.
So for you, childhood, was that in Korea or where?
Yeah. So I moved to Korea when I was 5, and then we came back when I was about 9. So early childhood was in Seoul. And then my dad was still in international business, but my mom felt really strongly that my brother and I should have roots. We should have like a home base, and we shouldn't keep moving. So we settled back in New Jersey, and then we lived there until I went to college.
So growing up, if I can just briefly take you back there for a moment, whether it was in Seoul or even in Jersey, what were you into? What did you like? Any extracurricular activities?
So I am a child of immigrants. My parents both immigrated from India. And if you know anything about Indian immigrants, you'll know that there is only school. And you have options when you grow up. You can be a doctor, you can be an engineer, and that's about where the options stop. So yeah, I mean, I played some sports in high school, and I did speech and debate. I used to compete in original oratory, giving speeches. But mostly, if you come from a family like mine, it was really school, and it was, about getting into the best college you could get into to create a life that your parents consider worthy, which is, being a doctor.
Yeah. No, no, I understand. But even now, my oldest son, when he sometimes I tell him to join some clubs and this and that, or he's sort of into tech and the engineering side,
Yeah.
and he he tells me, and he was like, it's mostly Indian, a few Asians here and
Yeah.
there. Yeah,
It's still that way to this day. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, definitely. So, did you know at an early age that you wanted to be a doctor, or when did that happen?
Well, like I said, you don't get, you don't have like the full range of options. I have two daughters now. My daughters are 12 and 9, and I don't think I'll restrict them quite as much as my parents restricted me. But it was kind of put into my head at an early age that this is something that I should do. And so I was pre-med, I started college pre-med, and where I think I got really lucky is I kind of zeroed in on plastic surgery pretty early. So the summer after my first year of medical school, I worked in a plastic surgery lab at NYU. And I got really interested in the technical aspects of surgery and the science of surgery. And it ended up being the best possible way that medicine could have gone for me, because I could see myself being unhappy in a lot of medical fields, but this one's actually great. This is like I have a great job. I love my job. So it worked out well in the end.
Okay, that's good. So, I guess you got exposed to it, you said, during medical school, and that's why you went the plastic surgery route.
Yeah, exactly. I knew I wanted to take care of women. I mean, the other thing that I considered doing was OBGYN, because I was interested in having a predominantly female population. But I love the technical aspects of surgery. And most surgeons, you spend a lot of time in training. I trained for 7 years after medical school. And if you don't love it, if you don't love the technical aspects of surgery, it's hard to get through that training, because it's a lot of hours and it's a lot of years. But I really do. I love operating. I love being a surgeon. So this allowed me to kind of dovetail both of those, where I could have a practice where I'm taking primarily care of women and I could operate. And so that's the kind of best of both worlds for me.
You said after med school, you sort of went to New York, and then afterwards, that's when you came to the DMV area.
Yeah.
What made that move down here?
So my husband is a transplant hepatologist. He does liver transplant, takes care of liver transplant patients at Georgetown. And when we were in New York, we were both kind of trying to figure out jobs and next steps. And he got a great job offer from Georgetown. They have one of the biggest liver transplant programs in the country. So he took the job first. And so that's how we kind of decided to come here. We were just, we're both from New Jersey. So we were deciding, we knew we wanted to live on the East Coast. We wanted to live somewhere between Boston and DC, but we were okay with any of those cities. And then it was just a matter of the job. So I honestly didn't know that much about DC when he took the job here. And because I'm a plastic surgeon, I do general plastic surgery. Oh, did I freeze? Am I okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're fine.
Sorry, it froze on my end. I could work really anywhere, right? Like I could really set up a practice or join a practice anywhere. I wasn't restricted by something as niche as liver transplant. So he took the job in DC in 2012, 2013, and then we moved here. When we moved here, our older daughter was 1. She was just a baby, and it turns out that DC is actually like the best city to raise a family. I mean, it's just such a cool place to raise a family. And it's like things I never knew, like, all the museums are free and the zoo is free. So when the baby wanted to go to the zoo at 6 o'clock in the morning, you could go and it was free, and she would get tired of it after 30 minutes and you could come home and you didn't waste any money, So it has turned out to be the best possible place. I mean, you've been here a long time. And talked to a lot of business owners in the DMV, and I just think it's such a cool city, and I think it's super underrated. People don't really know how great it is.
Yeah, I love it here. I mean, and that's
Yeah,
one of the reasons for the show, of course.
yeah. I love that you do this. By the way, I listened, like I said, I listened to a couple of episodes, and I was really impressed by the diversity of areas. Like you interview people from like the Chamber of Commerce lady, and then the guy from DC Water, and then somebody who does the construction. So it was just I was impressed by the variety of guests you have on.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So in the household, your husband's a doctor, so there's 2 doctors.
Yeah, two of us. Yeah.
So I'm sure your daughters probably don't have much options then. It's probably
Well, interestingly, there's no one less cool to you than your parents. You know how
that
that
is
goes.
so true.
How old are your kids?
I have three boys, 13, 11, and 8.
Okay, almost the same as mine. So my older
Yes.
daughter is about to turn 13 and my little one's going to turn 10. Uh, so there's no one less cool than your parents, right? So when my little one, who's almost 10, she was probably like 6 or 7, and she came home from school and she said, someone had asked her, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And she was like, well, I want to do something that's art and science, like has some art and science. And I'm like, hello, like plastic surgery, be a plastic surgeon. And she's like, ugh, mama, not that, so like there's nothing less cool to kids than what their parents do. So I don't know, we'll see. But at this point, I don't think either of them's going to be a doctor.
That's so true, though. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
You said you were at a practice here before you went off on your own. What
Yeah.
made you decide to do that? To sort of, hang up your shingle. Was that always, a thought? Was that a goal, or it just happened?
No, actually not at all. One of the interesting things about doctors is that doctors are notoriously bad at business, right? Like bad with money, bad at business, good at doctoring. So I joined this group practice and it was 2 men and 2 women. And about 5 years in, we as a group kind of had to make a decision about whether I would join that group as a part, if I would buy into partnership there and become a partner or start something on my own. And I did at that time have this vision of wanting to create something for women by women. And you can't really do that in a group that has, that has both genders of surgeons. So that was really the impetus to go out on my own, because I didn't think I could craft this very specific niche practice with this specific mission for this specific audience within a group. It had to be me. It had to be me and my vision. So that was the original impetus to start the practice. And then starting a business, and you've talked to so many business owners, it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts, I mean, it's like every time you complete a task, even DCRA or getting your license for the space or whatever it is, every time you complete a task, there are 10 new tasks that pop up that you have to complete, and then there's tasks you didn't even know existed. So I feel like it was like a little bit trial by fire, and all of this minutia, these little details that had to be completed before the business could open. And for medicine in particular, like, we have to have malpractice insurance. I knew that, but I didn't know that if you own a business, you also have to have business liability insurance, and you also have to have workman's comp insurance, and you also have, so there was this huge fund of knowledge that I didn't have about having a business that was totally separate from the fund of knowledge required to be a surgeon, which also is like a vast fund of knowledge. So I had decided to start the practice, go out on my own, build this mission, and I had a global idea of what I wanted the vision to be, but I didn't know how to do it. And so one of my later passion projects, which I started in 2023, is a business owners networking group for women. And that's something that was born of me starting a business with no knowledge and feeling like I didn't know that many women who own businesses, or people who own businesses. I didn't know kind of the accountants and the lawyers and the small business consultants and all the people you need on your team, the insurance consultants. And I thought, well, if I'm doing this and I'm flying blind, I'm not the only one. Like, I'm not the first person who ever started a business, right? So then I started this networking group, and that was born of my complete like trial by fire, lack of knowledge in starting this place.
I love the networking group. So it was a great idea. So did you reach out to other local woman business owners that you're like, hey, would you like to join, or what was the following steps?
So I have a pretty active Instagram, pretty active social media. I've had that since we started the practice, and I've got probably like almost 12,000 followers. And importantly, the majority of them are women in the DMV who live like within maybe 40 miles of my office. And that, we watch those demographics because it is a business. So I initially started talking about this on my Instagram, on social media. And I first just asked the question, like, if is this a need? Is there a need for this? Is this something that people want? And the response was just totally overwhelming. Like, I can't think of another time I got so many DMs back where female business owners were like, yes, we need this, we want this. And then I just created a Google contact sheet, like a put in your information and join this list. And we have about 200 business owners on the list now, female DMV business owners. And we've been doing events for almost, this will be our third year. And they're once a quarter, and I send an invitation out to the list, and it keeps growing. Now it grows by word of mouth, and it grows, because someone will come to an event and they'll enjoy it and they'll tell their friend who owns a business. And we've done like really good nuts and bolts business owner events. Like we had a panel with a small business consultant, an accountant, and an attorney, and they sat and talked about, here are the top 5 missteps that we see from small business owners. And then we had a marketing workshop where one of our marketing and branding strategists brought in 5 other marketing and branding strategists, and then we broke into small groups, and everybody had a chance to present their business, and then the marketing strategist kind of helped you walk through what would be an ideal strategy for your business. So I try to make them really high yield. People's time is really valuable, but the response to the social media inquiry about, do we need this, just how overwhelming that was. Clearly there was a need. And it's not, I happen to focus on women, but as you know, it's not just women that have these problems and these questions. It's, it's all business owners. Yeah. So that has been really fun. It's been a fun passion project. For the first 2 years, I just did it myself. And this year, for the first time, we have a little board of 4 women, including me. We have a marketing strategist, a small business attorney, and a small business consultant. And the 4 of us together kind of plan the events going forward.
What's the name of the group?
It's just DC Female Business Owners.
Okay, great.
I need to catch your name. I got to put my marketing girl on it.
No, I like it. It's simple. Keep it simple, right? Do you ladies meet at your office, or every quarter is a different location, or?
No, it's usually a different location, and there's I capped the attendance at 30 people because I wanted to create a space for kind of authentic connections. And I think if you're in a room of 100 people, you sort of end up gravitating towards the people you already know. And if it's a room of 30 people, then at the beginning, everyone stands up and says, this is my business. And then, we discuss things like, what's the biggest challenge you had this year as a business owner, or whatever. And then people kind of share insights. So we've done it at the Fountain Inn, which is I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's a rare spirits tasting room on Wisconsin Avenue. It's great if you haven't been. They have an upstairs space. So we've done it there. We've done it at Say Cheese DC, which is owned by one of our owners, which is owned by one of our members, Susie Nabil. And that is over in the Graham Hotel in Georgetown. So we've done a couple different places, and we do, of course, like to support small businesses. So we try to do it at places that are locally owned small businesses.
That's great. If someone's listening to this, is there a fee? How does it work? Is it per event that you pay, or?
Yeah, exactly. So it's it's usually $30 to attend an event, and it just covers our costs. So nobody's making any money off of this. This is truly like a passion project, but it just covered the cost of the, the space and the drinks and the appetizers or whatever the food is. There is a contact list. So in the highlights tab on my Instagram, and I'll give you the link as well, that you can sign up on the Google Doc contact sheet. It just gives some basic information, your name, your email address, your business name, your sector, like are you in retail or healthcare or real estate or whatever. And then that just puts you on the list. And then every quarter you'll get an email about the event that's happening. And the one that I'm really excited about that's coming up in June, we have our summer event, which is the beginning of our Inspiring Women series. So I have women who have like really built it big come and talk about their journeys. So in June, Susan Tynan from Framebridge is going to come, Framebridge, the framing conglomerate, I guess. She's going to come and talk about her journey and how she built, this little idea that she had about framing pictures and then turned it into this like multi-state national business.
I love that. And the reason I'm asking all these questions is because I've thought about, obviously I have the show, and I've thought about having it also offline where we can get together like a small group of people, just local business people, and something like that, just bring in someone to come in and, give advice. And so I love this idea. I'm happy it's working out. It's grown organically.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's been very much like word of mouth, just my social media and the other people that come to the events, their social media. And organic growth is the best kind, like then the people that come once someone comes once, they almost always come again, because which is really heartening to me, because that means that whatever we're doing, people are finding valuable. And I think you should definitely think about doing something offline because, entrepreneurship is a lonely enterprise, right? Like a lot of what you do is as a business owner is alone.
Mhm.
Like when you're doing your end of year books, you're alone, you're sitting by yourself. So I think any opportunity for business owners to connect with each other is great. And what I've really enjoyed watching the group is that these connections that you don't expect or that you wouldn't otherwise think would happen when you put 30 people who own businesses in a room, these amazing connections happen. And a great example is there's a woman who was at my marketing group table who is a sound healer. She's like she used to have a job on some other kind of regular corporate job, and now she does sound healing. I don't know if you know anything about that, but
Not much.
it's like kind of like in the wellness space, you do these like sound bowls and people and the different vibrations are supposed to do something. Honestly, I don't know that much about it. But
Okay.
so she's a sound healer. And then another woman at my table has been an internist, an internal medicine doctor in DC for like 25 years. So the internal medicine doctor was saying, well, I go to these like DC physician group meetings, and
Hmm.
we're always looking for something interesting to do, like having someone come in to talk about something that's like medicine adjacent. So they ended up connecting, and then the sound healer ended up doing an event for the internal medicine doctor and her group. And I was like, well,
Okay.
this is exactly right. Like
Would have thought.
this is exactly like you never would have put those two together, but when you did, like something really cool happened.
Yeah, we totally went sort of off tangent with this group, but bringing it back to your practice and
Sure.
how this group actually has grown organically. Like you said earlier, it's different when you being a doctor and actually practicing your field than actually then opening and operating a business.
Totally.
How was that first year for you, doctor, as far as you know now?
Terrible. It was terrible. And I distinctly remember in the very first year, I was like, I had opened in August and then I was doing my taxes. So it was like right before tax season was due. And I had never had to do that before, right? Because I used to be employed. So I'm sitting with my computer and I'm like just trying to figure out like where the expenses go and where the income goes and how you categorize the things and getting all these documents together. And I was talking to my husband, I was like, I can't do this, like this is, I don't know how to do this. And then my husband, who's very funny, he was like, listen, if the guy that owns the pizza shop down the street can do his taxes, you can do your taxes. If the guy that owns the dry cleaners can run a small business, you can run a small business. And it was like, okay, people do this, right? Like people run businesses all the time. And just like learning medicine, it's one thing at a time. And you gather the knowledge and gather the knowledge. So the first year, to answer your question, was hard. It was hard because I didn't know anything. And I was just just trying, like drinking from a fire hose. I was just trying to learn as much as I could about running the business and about all the things that I needed to make it happen. And this is like before I've even ordered gauze, right? Like there's also a whole like supplies element of it. Like you have to have a contract with a company that you get your gauze from. Where do we put our sharps? We needed to have a contract with a company that picks up the sharps and the biohazard. Like there's just a million little things. So the first year was really hard. That said, every subsequent year has been easier because
Okay.
the business, like learning how to run the business is very front loaded. So, you open the business, you make a bunch of mistakes, you take way too much time to do things that should take not very much time at all. But then you have that knowledge, right? Like, and now that knowledge is a part of me. And so the next time you do it, it's like a little less hard. And then of course new challenges come up, but I do feel like at this point, the business is a little bit on autopilot. Like I know, that like payroll is on auto payroll. So payroll happens every week. It doesn't require me to like push the buttons. And so I think that part has gotten much, much easier over time. But yeah, the first year was hard.
From a marketing standpoint, I
Yeah.
know, for example, the group was organically, but this is you're starting the Instagram. This is before the 16,000 plus followers you have there. So from a marketing standpoint, how do you get those first few patients? How do you drive traffic into the practice?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, and it's an interesting question because marketing in medicine and in plastic surgery in particular has changed so much since I was in training. So I graduated from medical school in 2006 before any of this stuff existed, right? And the kind of the mantra, the rule back then was that you only advertise plastic surgery at two times. Once when you're starting, when you're going into practice and no one knows your name, and the second time you advertise is when you're failing, because real plastic surgeons who are good shouldn't have to advertise, right? Because you should just be so good that word of mouth, everyone talks about it and everyone knows you and you become a great surgeon.
Hmm.
But that was before Instagram, when you could put your results online. So before, you really were relying on, word of mouth. And now it's all social media. It is all social media. Like, it's not like social media marketing is one part of our market. It is the
It's
marketing.
everything.
It's everything. And in that, in a way, I think it's great because it has allowed surgeons to take our results and our craft and our aesthetic directly to the public. Like, you don't have to pay somebody to publish you in a magazine if you can put your results right there on Instagram and people can find you that way. So in that way, I think it's been great. I also think it's great for plastic surgeons because you can disseminate a lot of knowledge. And a lot of what I use my Instagram for is education, right? Like, Instagram actually has done a lot of censorship of before and after photos for body plastic surgery, which is what I do. I do mostly breast and belly. So even in the last 6 months, we've had to completely shift our marketing strategy because every time we would post a before and after, I would get like a red flag. And if
Oh,
you get a red flag, that means that Instagram won't show your content to anyone who doesn't already follow you. So that was like a huge thing because that we used to post, 3 times a week before and after, like, here's a breast augmentation, here's a tummy tuck, here's a liposuction. And then when Instagram started really cracking down on their censorship, we switched to being more of an educational, inspirational platform. And that's been, I mean, it's been interesting. It's only been like I said, it's been less than 6 months. Your original question was, how do you get those first patients in the door? I think social media is the way that you would do it now. Now, when I started this practice, I'd already been in practice for 5 years, so it's not like I was starting from zero. But yeah, I mean, it's really social media.
so were you able to use some of those, I guess, previous results from patients, and then
Yeah.
now you're, standing your own practice up, and then before and after 6 or so years ago, and then that helped out just bring the first couple of patients in the door?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And then, there's patients that I was already taking care of that followed me, that came with me.
Sure.
And then word of mouth. I live pretty close. I live in the community. We were living in Georgetown at the time, and now I live in the Palisades. So my entire personal network is also in the same sort of neighborhood as my office. So that helped too. I mean, the longer you live in a community, the more known you become, right? Like, that's natural. So that helped also.
Was that the reason you decided to, M Street, where you are now, your location?
So this is an amazing location. The 2440M it's a medical building, so it's pretty much all doctors. It's a beautiful building. It's right in a super convenient location, right on M between 24th and 25th, like between Nobu and Blue Duck. So I mean, it's just a perfect place for it. In fact, it's so popular that there are actually 9 plastic surgeons in my building.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But the reason I chose this location is because I live pretty close by. And I once read this thing that really shaped the way I live my life. And it is that if you want to be happy, you should live your whole life in a 2-mile radius, like your home, your grocery store, your place of work, your place of worship, your kids' school. If everything is in a 2-mile radius, you will have a happy life. And I think that's true because it completely eliminated my commute. It takes me 8 minutes to get to work. And I think that actually gives you like hours of your day back.
That's so true. I didn't think I never heard of that. Is it because
Yeah.
of that main reason, as far as commuting, you're eliminating that?
Well, yeah, I wanted to eliminate my commute. I wanted to be in like a nice upscale area because that's kind of the clientele that we serve. And it's a great medical building. So it was all of those things.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned social media, just because I remember, I don't know, gosh, 5, 10 years ago, when TikTok was sort of in the come up and it was blowing up, and there was this doctor out of Miami. I forgot what his
Oh
handle
yeah,
was.
Dr. Miami. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. And he was just saying how it blew up his practice and all these
Yeah.
followers. And it's so true. It is social media now.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
That's crazy. What is the future? What are you looking forward to in the future with the practice?
So last year, actually now 2 years ago, we built our own surgery center, which has been huge because the way that surgery works, you see your surgeon in their office, but then you have to go somewhere to have surgery. You have to have an accredited operating room, an anesthesiologist, all those things. So in 2023, I built Boutique Surgery Center, which is literally on the other side of the white brick wall. And it's fully accredited by Quad ASF, which is the National Accreditation Agency for Surgery Centers. So that has been huge for our patients because it has allowed me to control the experience from the moment that they come into our space until they're completely done. They come to my office, they have surgery in our surgery center. They're only taken care of by my staff who only does what I do, right? So we all do the same thing day in, day out. And the more you do something, the better you get at it. So we've really created this seamless experience for patients from start to finish. We also have a partnership with the Fairmont Hotel, which is across the street, for our overnight patients. So sometimes when patients have surgery, I mostly operate on moms. And if you've got little kids at home, it's kind of hard to go home after you've had a big surgery. So many of our patients will utilize our Fairmont packages. For that, you finish having surgery, our team takes the patient over to the hotel. Our team has actually been to the hotel beforehand to set up the room. And then our nurse stays overnight with the patient. And then by the time they wake up the next day, they're starting to feel a little better. They've been cared for by our nurse overnight. I actually go over there to see them for their first post-operative visit, so they don't have to make a trip to the office. And then I take a look, I make sure everything looks good. And then sometimes patients will go home that day, a partner can come pick them up or whoever can come pick them up. Sometimes patients stay 5 days. I had a patient 2 months ago who stayed like a whole week. It's like, okay, you do you. So what I really love and what I'm looking forward to doing more of is continuing to kind of refine that experience for our patients so that just from the first time you call the office until you finish your post-op care and you're completely done with us, everything should feel super easy, very seamless. It should feel like the best experience at a luxury hotel. Like it shouldn't feel like you're having to work or that you can't get in touch with us or that you have to kind of drag yourself around. Like we want to make everything super easy.
It's very much like concierge-like.
Very much, yes.
Yeah, I love that.
We take a
Doctor,
lot of our
no,
we take a lot
no,
of our
go ahead.
cues from the hospitality industry rather than from the medical industry.
Hmm.
So when we're designing this experience for our patients, we really think of them as guests. We don't think of them as, patients who are sick. And of course, we have the privilege of doing that because I do aesthetic surgery. So the patients I care for are not sick. They're perfectly healthy and having what is actually a great surgery that's going to make their lives even better. So because we have the benefit of having patients who are healthy, we can create an experience that is much more hospitality based versus medical based, which is nice.
That's great. What would you say you're most proud of this far in your career?
So I would consider myself a relentless promoter of women, as you may have figured. So I would say the things that I'm most proud of is that I've created employment opportunities for women. I hire women in my practice. I try to take good care of them. I have taken care of thousands of women in the DMV, shepherded them safely through these surgeries. I've created this business networking group, and in many ways, our mission of being for women by women at the practice is my personal mission in my life. So what I'm most proud of is that I live that mission. I live it, I embody it, I live it every day. And I hope really that it inspires other women to do the same. I think that when you win the game, when you achieve success, it's your moral imperative to turn around and help the next person, right? And for me, that means helping women who are starting their businesses. It means helping patients go through this process. It means being good to my employees, so supporting women really from beginning to end.
I love that. You've mentioned your team a couple times already during this interview.
Yeah.
How important is your team, and I guess finding the right people to put in the right role?
Critical. I mean, that's not just for me, that's for any business. So my office manager, clinical coordinator, Wendy, has been with me since we opened, from day one. And when I'm hiring, I think that you can teach people to do almost anything. I think you cannot teach work ethic and you cannot teach people to care. So if you have somebody who has a great work ethic, who cares, you can train that person to do almost anything. So Wendy's a great example. So Wendy came from an ophthalmology practice background. She was an office manager. Before that, she had worked in salons. She had been like a hair stylist. So she's had a lot of different, she's worn a lot of different hats in her life, but she has an incredible work ethic. She believes in our mission and she really cares. And so from that point, even though she joined me not really knowing anything about plastic surgery, if you talk to her today, she's an absolute expert in all the surgeries that I do, and she takes really good care of our patients. On the surgery center side, I have a female board certified anesthesiologist, Dr. Spate, my nurse manager, Allie, my pre-op and PACU nurse, Megan. This team has been with me since day one, since we opened the surgery center. And same thing, they believe in our mission. They take great care of our patients. They have incredible work ethics and they care.
That's great. What, is it easy to find them, or did you have
Yeah,
difficulties
no.
finding the right people?
Yeah, as you know, staffing is like the hardest part of having a business. So Wendy, I found early and was super lucky to find her because, like I said, she and I opened the practice together. On the surgery center side, I had worked with all of these people before. So
Okay.
Dr. Spate and I had worked together when I was at Sibley Hospital. I had been operating there for a while, and Dr. Spate was an anesthesiologist over there. Allie and I had worked together at Inova McLean Surgery Center. So she had been a nurse over there when I was operating there. So I cherry picked this team based on the best people that I had known and met throughout my, whatever 5 years that I had been operating the DMV. And I like handpicked these people because I knew that they would be the right match for our mission. But yeah, you're right. It's very difficult to find the right people.
Doctor, if someone's listening to this and they're inspired, they want to open their own business, maybe it's a medical practice, maybe totally different industry, what advice would you give them?
Okay, so I think the most important part of any business is to be mission driven, to be mission driven. So I think the businesses that do the best in any industry are businesses that are mission driven from day one. So our mission is to be for women by women. Everything that we do, everything you see is built around that mission. Everybody that works here believes in that mission. So I think if somebody's thinking about starting a business, you have to believe in what you do. You have to have a mission that you believe in that makes sense for your business, that everyone around you also buys into and believes in, right? And I think that creates the best experience for the consumer.
I love that. That's great. We all have setbacks, or some people call it failures through life and in business. Is there something that comes to mind, doctor, as far as a big setback you might have had and what you learned from that?
I mean, where to begin? We talked earlier about starting a business and how there are things that you just don't know.
Hmm.
And I got a pretty hefty tax bill the first year that I had the practice because I didn't know enough about how those numbers are calculated and how to calculate your estimated taxes. And I have an accountant and she's great, but it's data in, data out, right? So I hadn't given her the right data for her to give me the right numbers. And so by like March of the next year or whatever, the first year I was in the business, I owed like a huge tax bill. It was like, oh my God, like this is like all my profits for the next like 3 months are going to pay the IRS. So I would say that was a lesson early on. And it was a lesson that sort of resonates with probably all the lessons that I learned early on, which is that there are going to be mistakes. Like you're going to make mistakes. There are going to be setbacks. Some of them are going to be really expensive. And I think the most important thing is to learn and move forward, like don't make the mistake. So the next year I did not make that mistake and I did not get a big tax bill.
That's good. Yeah, those quarterly estimates get you.
Yes. At least until you figure it out. Because the first year you're guessing, right? Like you don't
Yeah.
really know. And then it's their estimates. So you're kind of
Yeah.
like, so anyway, it's gotten easier over time.
Are there any specific habits or traits you feel that have helped you in your practice and business, or maybe just even outside at home personally?
Yeah, for sure. The biggest one I think in my business is culture comes from the top. So in my practice, I just did an Instagram on this. I'm willing to do anything. I will wipe the countertops in the exam rooms to make the room turnover go faster. I will answer the phone if the person at the front desk is in the bathroom and it rings. I will answer that phone. And I do those things because if I'm willing to do everything, then everybody's willing to do everything. I never want to hear from myself or anyone else, that's not my job. Like the first time I hear that, that's not the right person for my practice, because everybody has to be fully bought into making the business as good as it can be. And that always comes from the top. So if you are not willing to do everything, your staff is not going to be willing to do everything.
Yeah, that's so true. And you lead by example. And I even see it at home. I'm sure you see it with your daughters that maybe you don't tell them something, but they see mommy or daddy do something, and in the end, they copy it. And you're like, where did they learn that? And it's from you.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
What would you say is your biggest challenge with your role at your practice today?
Well, most recently it's been the social media marketing. I mean, it's been the fact that we've had to make this huge pivot as to how we reach patients. And part of what I think makes us special is that I do this one surgery and I do it really well and I have great results and I want to be able to show those results. I have a really specific aesthetic, which is like a natural best version of yourself result. And not being able to show that has been really challenging. So we've been trying to kind of figure out ways around it. Like, okay, we can still show it in the stories, but we can't show it on the main feed because then it gets flagged, but they don't flag stories for some reason. And so
That's
then we've
weird.
created a second Instagram account called Boutique Surgery Results, where we're just posting before and afters with the idea that if that one gets taken down, then we could just reload, like we could just start a new one and reload it. But the following was hard to build, right? Like having a big-ish following on social is like, it takes time. And that's like,
Mhm.
and on our main page, we have a following that's mostly our audience. It's women, they live in the DMV, they're in the right age group. It's the exact audience that we want. And an interesting thing happened this summer. I had this YouTube channel, so similar, social media. And we put a lot of the similar stuff on there, but I had this random video that I had done where I cut open a breast implant, an old breast implant. And I squeezed the implant and I was showing that the newer breast implants, they're not made out of liquid silicone, they're made out of like a semi-solid silicone. So if you push on the implant, it basically like bubbles out, but then it goes back in and then it takes its own form again, right? So I'd done this video and I'd cut it and I'd squeezed it and pushed it out and pushed it back in. And this was like, I probably made that video 5 years ago. So 2 years after I made the video, it went viral. And I have no idea why it went viral. I didn't do anything to promote it. It was literally a 2-year-old video of me in the operating room cutting open an implant. So then it got picked up in some ASMR community video. You know what ASMR is? It's like the thing that kids are doing where like certain sounds and
Oh, okay.
sights produce like a pleasant sensation.
Yes,
So
yes.
like, people will like tap on their like skincare bottles and stuff. Anyway, so the visual of this like bubble of silicone coming out and going back in went like super viral in the YouTube world. And that video got 100 million views on YouTube.
Wow.
100 million views by the time all was said and done. So this summer, so then when you have a video that goes viral, like that viral, you get all these followers. All these people start following the account. So by last summer on YouTube, we had 165,000 followers. But if you looked at the demos, if you looked at the demographics of those followers that were following this YouTube channel, they were like, it was totally random. It was like all over the world, half men, like, nothing to do with plastic surgery, nothing to do with mommy makeovers, nothing to do with anything that I do for my actual work. Like I'm not
Mhm.
trying to be an influencer, I'm trying to be a surgeon.
Sure.
So we had 160 something thousand followers, 100 million views on this video, and then a whole bunch of other videos got like propped by that one that went viral. So then like several of our videos had like a couple million views and hundreds of thousands of views. So this summer, our YouTube took the channel away. They shut it down.
Why?
Totally took it away for the same censorship reasons. So the
Oh.
YouTube channel had, in addition to those videos that went viral, it had all of our usual stuff. It had before and afters, it had me in the operating room, it had, our normal plastic surgery content. But somewhere in the last year, all the platforms have gotten really aggressive with their AI crawler censorship. So the
Mhm.
AI now crawls all these videos for nudity basically. And the AI can't tell the difference between like pornographic nudity and surgical nudity. So we were getting flagged for nudity. And several of the videos had been flagged. So we were like kind of messing with it. We were taking some down. And then one day I got an email in July that your account has been suspended. It's been taken away. $165,000 just taken away.
Wow.
So then we started looking into it and we like appealed and we tried to get the thing back. And for like 3 or 4 months, we were like back and forth with YouTube. They never gave it back. It's gone. It's just gone forever.
Oh
So
my God.
that is actually what prompted me to stop showing before and afters on the Instagram, because whereas the YouTube channel, while it's like sad to lose an account that has so many followers, it also was like kind of worthless from a business perspective, because I never had a single patient come in and say that they found me on YouTube, right? Because half these patients live in like, Eastern Europe and China and India. Like they're not my audience.
Hmm.
Whereas Instagram, we've built really slowly and organically, and like, one mom tells another mom about it, or patients are following and their friends are following. So our Instagram community is like a real community. It's women that live in the DMV that are in our age demographic that are potentially interested in what I do for work. So I'm really worried about losing it. Like I'm like genuinely concerned.
Yeah.
So that's why we had to switch the whole marketing strategy and switch over to stuff that didn't get flagged. And I paid for the blue check. I was like really trying not to get the account shut down. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe if I pay for the blue check, then that gets you like a person. Like if you have
Hmm.
the blue check, then you can contact a person. So I thought, well, at least if we get shut down, we can contact a person. But since we stopped showing before and afters, I stopped getting flagged. So at least I'm not like at risk now. But that was the whole impetus. That was why we had to make this big change.
Is this censorship happening also? I know Instagram is part of Facebook, but do you see it in Facebook or on TikTok? I don't know if you're on TikTok or some other social media platforms.
I'm not on. I mean, we have a TikTok, but we don't really post on it, and we don't do very much on Facebook. I have a really niche practice, so I really only do breast, belly, lipo for women between ages like 25 and 60. So that demographic is really on Instagram. So that the reason that we focus our efforts on Instagram is because the audience we're trying to reach is primarily on Instagram. TikTok tends to skew younger, and that's not so much our audience. And then Facebook tends to skew older, and that's also not our audience. So that's how we landed there. So I don't know about those platforms and their censorship.
Changing the content from before and after to just more educational now. Have you noticed a shift or a difference?
So we get more views. So
Okay.
the before and after type content, the educational content gets more views, but we also, just from a strategy standpoint, since we're not showing before and afters and we're doing more general content, we do more trends. So like my nurse practitioner and I did like the Alphabet Glinda, video trend.
Hmm.
So the trending videos always get more views just because they get shown in the
Sure.
explore page. So we definitely have more views. We've definitely gotten shown to more accounts that don't follow us, which is nice. That was another thing that we were kind of trying to bring back. But I don't know. I mean, it's so early. We've only been doing this for a few months, so I don't really have a pulse on what's going to happen with it.
Yeah. What do you know now that you wish you would have known at the start of your career?
Um, I This ended up being the exact right fit for me. Like this practice that I have right now with this patient population, with this staff, this location, it's all very right. So I suppose if I knew that from the beginning, I would have started this practice right away. I wouldn't have taken the first job.
Okay. But then you would have that client that would follow you, right?
You're right. Yeah. I mean, there's pluses and minuses to everything, right? It would have been a slower growth, I think, for sure. Like when we started this practice, we kind of hit the ground running. Like Wendy tells this story about how we had built the space, and I was actually traveling, and we had built the space, and it was the day like we were technically like opening the doors for phone calls, and she plugged in the phone and it started ringing, and she didn't have like a pen, she didn't have paper, so she like ripped one of the cardboard boxes that some of the supplies had come in, and she like used her eyeliner from her purse to write down the first patient's information, because she just like, so we really did, like we hit the ground running. Like the phone rang the moment we plugged it in. So that would not have happened if I had started right out of the gate. That was because like I myself as a surgeon was already established in the community.
Speaking about the beginnings, how long did it take to finally actually open the doors to the public?
It's about a year
Okay.
from the time that I made the decision to the time that we opened was about a year. And some of that is, again, you do commercial real estate, right? Yeah.
Hmm.
So the commercial real estate agent that helped me find my office is like one of my heroes of my life. Like again, you don't know what you don't know. So when I was looking for an office, I was like looking online, like where am I going to have an office? And then a friend of mine who works for JLL had introduced me to Tom Golson, who was my commercial real estate agent. And first he took me around to see properties, which was fine. And anyone could do that. But then he negotiated the terms of our lease. And there were all these words that I didn't even know what they meant, like the tenant improvement or the abatement. Like you get all these months that they give you up front, and all that stuff is negotiable. Your dollar per square foot, it's all negotiable, right? But I'm a doctor, I didn't know that.
Yep.
So he having those people in my corner early on to help navigate the pieces was extremely helpful. And it really gave me a new appreciation for other people and their expertise in their fields. Because, the older you get, the more you become like a super expert in one tiny little part of the world.
Yeah. So, doctor, they call you the queen of the mommy makeover. Why is
Yeah.
that?
So that's the only operation I do anymore. So that operation is post-pregnancy body contouring. That's when women are done having pregnancies. There are some anatomic changes that happen during pregnancy that are not reversible. So that's the piece, this is another one of my passion projects, is to kind of destigmatize plastic surgery for moms, because a lot of women carry a lot of guilt and shame about their bodies after they finish pregnancies. Your body changes in a really fundamental way. Some of it you can bring back with nutrition and exercise, but some of those changes are anatomic. And the best example is that women who have had multiple pregnancies, their six-pack muscles can separate. And if they separate internally, you always look sort of pregnant, like forever. You just look a little bit pregnant. And in cases that it's really bad, you might look like 6 months pregnant. And women will carry all this guilt and shame about how, like, well, if only I did more, if only I, exercised more, if only I ate better, if only I whatever, I could make this better. And they don't know that there's an anatomic reason that your muscles are separated, and that's why it looks that way. So getting that message out there that this is not your fault, right? Like, this is something that happens. It's science, it's anatomy, and there is a surgical solution. We can put the muscles back together. So that mission, that again, we were talking about mission before, like having a mission is the most important thing, and to really believe in it. So one of my goals is to destigmatize both the plastic surgery that you can have after pregnancy, but also just get the information out there that these are the things that happen and this is what you can do about them, both surgically and non-surgically. So because I care so much about that population, I started doing more and more of those surgeries, and it's all I do now. And I don't know of any other plastic surgeon in the DMV, or I don't know where else, but I only know this market. I don't know any other plastic surgeon that only does this one surgery. So that's how the name came.
And is that called the tummy tuck, or what is it? What is that
Well, the
procedure?
operation I just described is a tummy
Yes.
tuck with a diastasis repair. So the muscle separation is called a diastasis recti, which just means separation of your rectus muscles. The operation for the abdomen is a tummy tuck with a muscle repair or diastasis repair. And then typically in a mommy makeover, that's combined with a breast operation and liposuction, just depending on what the patient needs.
That's interesting because we asked our audience for questions for you. We have you on the
Oh,
show, and
huh.
and one of them was regarding the tummy. I didn't know how to describe it, but you did. Obviously, you know what you're doing. You did it perfectly, and I think it was also like stretch marks. One of the
Yeah.
questions was, so they can do this procedure then in that situation.
Right. So if your stretch marks exist below your belly button, then they get cut out in a tummy tuck. So anything below your belly button actually that skin gets completely removed and thrown away. If there are stretch marks that live above the belly button, they get pulled down like a window shade. So they'll change position, but they'll still be there. Most women's stretch marks are mostly below their belly button. So we mostly get rid of stretch marks in a tummy tuck.
Ah, interesting. So if it's below, you're golden. If it's above, you might still see a
You'll
little
still
bit.
have them, but they'll be lower. Yeah. So at least they'll hide in like a swimsuit bottom, versus if they're way up here, then you can't hide them.
Okay. Okay, great. The other question we had from our audience was, how feasible is this? And I think one of the examples they gave is, before when they had a physical trainer, they thought like, oh, it's going to be too much or expensive. And then they realized the cost actually is not that bad. So they were saying, is it only wealthy people do this? Can any ordinary person get procedures done with you?
I mean, that's that's an interesting question. So depending on what you need or want, a mommy makeover surgery, meaning all of them, like breast, tummy, lipo, if you're doing everything, the range is between 25 and 45,000. If you're just doing a single surgery, like if all you have is that muscle separation and you're just getting your muscles repaired in your tummy tuck surgery, that's somewhere like 15 to 20.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I was happy to bring it in, and then you mentioned the muscle and the stomach. I was like, oh, this is
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
When you opened, you said you were going blindly. Did you have any mentors or anyone maybe advising you from the side? You need to get this, you need to do that, or you were just doing it all by yourself?
I mean, I wish I did. And I suppose what I should have done in the beginning is I should have sought people out. Like I should have, I mean, there were definitely, like I'm in a few groups, like plastic surgery groups, people that own their practice, and where you can ask questions and people will answer them. But in terms of actually like meeting with someone who had done it before me, especially in the recent past, I didn't do that. And I really should have, because I think that in a way, I was reinventing the wheel, and it probably wasn't necessary for me to reinvent the wheel quite so much. If I had reached out, just like if someone reaches out to me now, I'm more than happy to share my commercial real estate agent, my insurance broker, all the people that helped me. I'm like very happy to share their names.
Hmm.
I think I should have done a little bit more of that. It probably it would have reduced the friction a little.
Oh, that's great. Coming to an end here soon, what does the next 5 years look like? What are you most excited about? I don't know, maybe you want to add another doctor down the road, or what's the future?
So I've been working really hard on creating my ideal life, like not just my ideal work life, but my ideal life.
Hmm.
So about 2 years ago, I stopped working Fridays, which is why you and I can do this on a Friday. So I don't work Fridays anymore. So I see patients Mondays and Thursdays, and I operate Tuesdays and Wednesdays. That's my schedule every week. That is pretty ideal for me. So if the next 5 years look exactly like the last year, then
Hmm.
I think I have gotten, I'm not working on Fridays, and having a very reasonable schedule lets me be around for my little people who are not going to be around very much longer. I mean, the crazy thing is you say 5 years, and my big girl is finishing, she's in seventh grade. So she literally has 5 years left with me, with us. And then
Yeah.
she's going to college, which is just like, as you know, is like crazy to think about. Like she was a baby yesterday. So a lot of it for me looks like just really embracing this life that I've worked really hard to put the pieces in the right place so that everything makes sense. Life is not all about work. I care a lot about my business. I care a lot about my practice, my patients, but I also care a lot about my family. So just, continuing more of that, more balance.
That's great. And when you're not busy working, what do you like to do for fun in your free time?
Oh, so we bought this place in Miami a couple of years ago. In during the pandemic. It was a total pandemic purchase. So in 2021, we bought this beach condo in Miami. So in the winter, I really like to be there on the weekends.
Sure.
Actually, I have a flight at 5:24. So pretty much most weekends we try to be there, and then, come back here to the cold from Monday to Thursday.
That's great. I love that. I'm sure the
Yeah.
whole family loves it because you're like
Well,
traveling to a different world almost.
I know. Yes, it's very different. And the thing about having two working parents and having little kids is that when you're home in your home environment, you're always half in and half out of everything, right? Like there's always an email coming in. And the kids always have something. They've got an activity or they've got homework. When we go there, it's actually a very simple life we live. Like we just play board games and eat dinner together and like go to the beach. And like it's just a very simple life. And we try to not be so distracted by our work life and their school life. And that I think has been both the biggest surprise and the most joyful thing about it. And of course, it's in Miami, it's at the beach, it's wonderful. But the place almost kind of became secondary to the experience that we're creating as a family.
I love that. So you do that, you try to do that every weekend?
I mean, I'm kind of exaggerating. We can't go every weekend. The kids have like ski school and all their stuff. But we go for all the 3-day weekends. So it's MLK this weekend, so we'll be gone for that. We're going for Presidents, and then there's some stuff that happens down there, like South Beach Food and Wine. So I'm going to go to that with some friends, and so it's not every weekend, but it's probably twice a month.
Okay, that's great. Doctor, if people want to learn more about you and your practice, where can they go to get more information, please?
I mean, the most active is really our Instagram, like we've been talking about, which is DC Plastic Surgery Boutique. And I'm pretty active on there myself, and we post a lot of stuff, obviously, but I'm usually in the stories most days, just filling people in on what surgery we're doing and what I'm doing in my life. We do have a website, dcplasticsurgeryboutique.com, where there's also a bunch of information, a bunch of pictures.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today. I had a great time.
Yeah, me too. This was a lot of fun, and I love that you're doing this. Thank you for spotlighting DC business owners.
Of course, of course. Take care.
All right, bye.